What's up, everyone? My name is Philip Hensler,
And I'm Adam Richmond.
and we're your co-hosts for today's PATS Technology Committee podcast. We started this podcast to initiate a conversation with the members of the athletic training community in Pennsylvania in the hopes that we can engage and foster relationships in the state, explore emerging settings, and provide a unique perspective into the day in the life of an athletic trainer. Today, I want to thank our guest, Joe Iezzi, for taking time out of his busy schedule to come chat with us. Joe, how are you doing today?
Good, fine. Thanks for having me, Adam and Phil.
So, Mr. Iezzi has been a certified athletic trainer for over 45 years. He earned his undergraduate from Westchester University of Pennsylvania and his graduate degree from California University of Pennsylvania. He's worked in almost every setting of the profession. Joe was a head athletic trainer at Cheyenne University from 75 to 85, in Philadelphia University from 85 to 88, and Downington High School from 88 to 2013. He's worked with the Olympic Training Center and has been involved in many leadership roles within the profession, including PATS Board of Directors, and he served as PATS President and introduced changes to the PA law and initiated the start of the new law directing under the Medical Practice Act. So, heavy hitter here, Joe. Again, thank you for coming on. Let's talk a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where'd you go to school? And how'd you get into athletic training?
I grew up in South Jersey, right across the bridge from Philadelphia, hence the Philadelphia, South Jersey accent. I've been compared to Rocky's voice sometimes. But I went to Westchester University, my undergrad, to be a health and PE major and run track. And I was supposed to play baseball too, but the coach would only let me do one. And of course, enjoyed it, loved it. Did not know what an athletic trainer was. Went to a Catholic high school in New Jersey that didn't have athletic trainers. I don't think anybody did that I knew of. In a class, you had to take all your activity classes. And the night before my first track meet, the night of my first indoor track meet, we had to do quite a few aims in our final for gymnastics class. And I went to do a front summy. I thought it was pretty good, but I came down, you heard a nice crack, and they carried me down to the athletic training room at Westchester University, and I met Phil Donnelly. Not the best man you could probably meet in our profession, right? And
Absolutely.
That taught me athletic training right there. So I thank the gymnastics coach to this day. I still see him once in a while and say, yep, you're the one that got my career started. But he made me do it again. I thought I did a good one. But anyway, that's like most athletic trainers, that's how we get started, right? We get injured, love the profession. I love sports. I love medicine, and got me involved in that and just went from there, really. So. And Westchester was a great place to learn under Brad Taylor, Joe Godak, and Phil Donnelly at the time. So couldn't have better mentors for athletic training.
So what was your first job out of college? What would you end up doing?
First job out of college, it's kind of interesting. I went a few months searching, quite a few interviews for health and PE / athletic training. It wasn't a major then. It was a point of emphasis. Actually, I was working in a factory in Northeast Philly, and I got the call from Cheney University that I interviewed, and didn't know anything really about the school. It was right up the road from from Westchester University. And I took the job in October 10th of 75, middle of football season. As a 22-year-old, 23-year-old young pup right out of college, and head athletic trainer there, their first athletic trainer, and went from there. And it was, my career has been, sometimes they say it's better to be lucky than good. And I consider that. I fell into a lot of really good things. Cheney University at the time had John Cheney as their basketball coach, Vivian Stringer as their basketball coach, who's at Rutgers still. John, of course, was Temple. And Billy Joe from this area was the football coach, played for the Jets in Villanova. I had three during their Hall of Fames, so what can I go wrong? And the athletic director was a Hall of Famer that went to Westchester. So Division I women's program for 10 years. They're in the top 10 in the country every year. Played in the first women's national championship at John Cheney. We won the national championship. So just kind of fell into it. Loved the place, loved the people, and stayed there 10 years, but then they left. So I left.
I mean, talk about getting thrown to the coals right off the start, mid football season. Probably one of the hardest starts for athletic trainer, even a veteran athletic trainer.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting because they had somebody who was filling in that said he was an athletic trainer, really wasn't, and he kind of said that I took his job. So I wasn't real popular at first, and the athletes were my age or older, and but we fell in love with each other and just became a great play. In our profession, if you're taking care of people and you're caring and you're helping them get better and feel better, so right away you can win them over.
Absolutely.
You're trying to keep them healthy, and so I mean, it's a love affair. I go back all the time, and like I said earlier to somebody, Facebook, I just got on there, was on it, and all of a sudden now I get things from those teammates from now till then, so it's pretty cool stuff. See their kids grow up and see how things are going. Then when things were changing there, Dick Delaney, who was a Westchester graduate, was at Philadelphia Textile at the time, became Philadelphia University, and then now it's Jefferson University. He was the baseball coach and assistant basketball at Textile, and we were rivals with them. He called me and said, "We got an opening for athletic trainer's job." And the ironic thing, it was 10 years to the day, October 10th, 85. So I said, "I'll get a tie and I'll be right down." I went for an interview and gave my 2-week notice, and I worked with Herb McGee, another Hall of Famer, and Dick Delaney for 3 more years. And I loved the college, but between 4 years as an athlete and 13 years athletic trainer in the state in the college level, I was on the road a lot. Yes. Back then, you're covering 2 high-profile basketball. We covered both men and women's, and you're on the road. We were by ourselves back in those days, and I was missing my kids grow up. And I accidentally fell into the high school job. I refereed and umpired in this area, high school and college, and I bumped into somebody at a batting cage, and they said Downingtown needed an athletic trainer. Any students? And I, of course, had students from Westchester all those years as a preceptor. I said, "Yeah, I have some good students. What does a high school athletic trainer make?" And they told me what they made, and I said, "Get the heck out." It was like twice of what I made after 13 years at the collegiate level. So kiddingly, I said, "Maybe I'll take the job." And by the time I got home, my 2 children said, "Somebody, a principal and athletic director, called from Downingtown?" Because they knew me. I used to officiate there. And I took that job. So 25 years later, I was there. But being at Downingtown, again, I was lucky. The athletic director was a Westchester grad, and people I knew, and just great coaches, great people like the other colleges I was at. And I think we won in 25 years, something like 15 state championships in 5 different sports. So it's like being at a college. It was pretty good.
Right.
Just great people.
Yeah, for sure, Joe.
Yep.
I'm curious. So, you've obviously had quite a few different positions and working in different settings. Can you maybe just compare and contrast what your day looked like at the collegiate setting versus the high school setting, and then maybe what you're retired now? What does your day look like now, and what is filling most of your day up?
That's a good question, because in the college level, I was working 7 days a week, 70, 80 hours a week, Saturdays, Sundays, traveling. And all of a sudden I take the high school job at that time, no Sundays. You had a day off. I was like, really? And even though we were a pretty profile high school, we traveled, but you're not going overnight trips, and things are pretty good. Did have a lot of night soccer and football games and basketball, so you still have the hours. But my athletic director is great. If my son, which was a little problem, he was at our rival high school, but if he was playing a game or something, my AD'd say, "Go ahead, go watch him." I said, "No, I can't leave." "Yeah, go watch." Just the flexibility to do things was a lot nicer, and closer to home, closer to my children. But the job's the same. You're doing athletic training, you're taking care of athletes, making them better. At the college level, you're closer to your athletes because you're like their parents away from home. And when you go to the doctor for an injury at the doctor and you, there's no miscommunication. The high school's nice. You don't have to go to all the doctor's appointments because the parents can do that. Even if somebody needs sutures at a soccer game, the parent could take them after. You don't have to sit in the emergency room for hours like you do with the college kid. But sometimes you get a little miscommunication, so you got to have a good rapport with the doctors and the parents. But that's a great thing. The parents and the community after 25 years, I'd call a parent whose athlete child got hurt in the practice, and they'd answer the phone. "Hi, Joe, which one is it and what happened?" So they know your number, and they know, or they're in Colorado and some travel team in the summer, and they call you and say, Becky got hurt. Do you know any doctors out here? Or can you call the doctor? We're going to fly in, so it's a pretty neat thing. And I think that's what athletic trainers do. And I think that's a great rapport you have. And people say, I'll never leave Downingtown, even though I didn't grow up here. But guess what? You're probably right. You go to get pizza on a Friday night, and there's 8 of your athletes there, with their kids. And so that's a neat thing. So, but the job's the same. You're an athletic trainer. Now what do I do? Retirement? Nothing. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I couldn't wait. I stayed in. I stay involved with our profession, of course, with PATS. I'm on a couple of committees, governmental affairs and long-range planning, EATA. I'm on a committee, and I'd like to help out where I can, or just be a go-to old person that they ask for some, ideas or something. That's fun. I cover a lot of tennis. Our tennis coach still involved in the PIA district and state, so I do that in the fall and spring for her. That's a tough one to cover. Most of the coaches I know from years back. So, and then of course, about 3 years before I retired, I fell into the NFL concussion spotter program. When they started that, when things started to happen with concussions in the NFL, the last game of the 2010-11 season, I think it was, I got a call from Rick Burkholder, who was on the board with me, and we were friends. And kidded, he said, I told you I'd get your retirement job and we'd be working together someday, just a few years early. And I'm like, what the heck's he talking about? I call him back, and every stadium that weekend needed a concussion spotter in the booth. And that's how it started. And there used to be one of us. Now there's 2 in the booth, and it's really, really progressed. It's gotten super, super integrated with videos and headphones, and you need 7 ears because you got headphones and walkie-talkies. And but it's probably the most intense job I've had. I mean, I've been to 5 NCAA finals. I've been to 25 state championships. I've refereed 3 state championships. But guess what? This NFL job is probably the most intense job ever. But I love it. I mean, that's what we live for.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it's like a game day is a 10, 12-hour day. We cover.
Oh, wow.
Every stadium. It's a home game.
Right.
We don't travel with the teams. We just cover the stadium. Although we started an ambassador program, and a few of us travel last year. I went to 3 other stadiums to observe their spotters and see how their program, not to see if they're doing well, just to see how their setup was, if they needed a better booth or, things like that. And so that was pretty neat. But if at 1 o'clock game, I usually leave my house 8:30, because if you don't, you'll never get to the stadium. I found out the first game I ever did. And it's so crowded and getting around the stadium. We have to be there 3 hours ahead anyway. And then you work the game 1 to 4, 4:30. By the time you go, you have to return thumb drives to the visiting home team and the referees and talk to them before and after. Get out of there. And even though I'm 42 miles away, sometimes it takes 3 hours to get home. So,
Yeah.
But it's a nice work, intense from at 3-4 hours you're working the game. Now we have 2 spotters. One covers the visiting team, and I cover the home team. And you can mix it up. And we're hooked up with walkie-talkies to the medical staff, the doctors, and the other trainers on the sideline. We're hooked up to the other UNCs, which are the independent neurologists on each sideline, and one in our booth with us. We're hooked up to each other. And we are hooked up to the head referee, so we can stop the game.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
We see it. We don't do any diagnosing. We don't do any. We just look for the big hits, and if we see something, basically there's like 5 criteria. If you see something, you hear him talking about it on the broadcast. They say, "Oh, he looks drunk. That lineman's not even getting up." Something you better do something. If you see something that doesn't look right and you watch the replay, we got to call down right away to get that number 62 off the field. There's 5 ways to get him off the field. We can do it. The referee can do it. We actually had training with them if they see a player not right. The home staff, of course, if they see it. The player themselves can self-report, or another player can report a teammate. So, so out of those 5, usually somebody catches it, but it's still impossible to catch everyone. Still doesn't matter how good you are. We have binoculars, we have replays. I keep my monitor on a 7-second delay. So I watch it live, and then I watch it again. And then we have 2 tech guys in the booth that can give us different angles and different replays. But of course you have to do that pretty quick. If you want to get somebody off. So And then if you call down, they have to go into protocol. Then you see the tent go up, and they go into tent. If they pass there, we get an answer. If they don't pass that, then they go into the locker room for more of an intensive protocol. And then we go close the loop. Yes, they can go. No, they're done. And we mark it. And then we have a laptop. Used to be a hand thing. You got 24 hours to get a report. Now we have to have a report done on the laptop before the game's over. We also have to tag. At one time, we had to tag every injury. When you were by yourself, so you're watching both teams. Now, like an ankle or knee, we tag it anyway because the team wants to call up and look at it. But we don't have to report it unless it's a significant injury where they have to, get taken off on the cart, or they have an ACL or a fractured, tibia, and they're not coming back. And then that's usually a tag play. But we always tag them because the team has that option. Some teams use it better than others. I mean, some teams, the athletic trainer and the doctor run the field, and the other doctor runs to the video down on the field and calls up before we, and we'll get that up quick because they want to see it. And that's great for mechanism injury. That's what I love about it. It's keeping me in my field, my profession. So, again, you know somebody and they call you. Networking, probably the most important thing.
That was kind of what I was curious about. Who are you actually employed through? Is that like?
That's the NFL. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of people, in neighborhoods say, "Oh, you work for the Eagles." No, I do not work for the Eagles.
Right.
You're supposed to be neutral. Everybody's neutral, and but a lot of us are in the area, and they called you, and you grew up here or something. But you're still neutral in that regard. But like in my instance, I know 90% of the athletic trainers as well as I know the new athletic trainer at the Eagles, probably better, even some other weight team. So they feel comfortable with that. So that's a good thing. After 11 years.
But it's more, it's not there's not an application process though, right? Like they're not putting out on the NATA, like, hey, we have a job opening for a spot, or it's more, you got to know somebody to know somebody.
Right. Well, the criteria was pretty stringent before, then it eased up a little. Now it's when they did the what we call the medical timeout, where you can call the referee. They got even more stringent. It used to be college athletic training experience, professional athletic training experience, so forth. But then quite about I don't want to say numbers, 3, 4, maybe 5 people when that came got taken off because they were head athletic trainers at a team, and they said that's kind of tough because if you pull the quarterback on the 2-yard line with a minute left and you used to work for that team, the other team, it might not look well. So I think you have to not have worked for the NFL in the last 10 years or 5 years. There's a criteria we do have. You need this kind of experience. But personally, I think any athletic trainer that's worked football, even on the high school level, I mean, I worked 10 years at college. There's more hitting in some high school games than there is in pros, maybe not as hard, but kickoffs and punts are a lot worse than in the pros. 80% of ours don't get returned, So if you're a football athletic trainer, you got the experience. Even if you're not a football, you know the mechanisms, you know what you're looking for. So, but it's pretty interesting.
And is it do you work every game, or is there a small group of you that work all the Philadelphia games?
For a while, I was by myself. I worked every game for like 7 years. I think I missed one game. I was away. Sorry about that. I thought I shut that off.
No worries.
That's okay.
I thought I shut that off. And then now that there's two of us in the booth, we split it. Now we actually have, I think every stadium has 4 in case somebody gets sick or something. So we kind of mix it up. Sometimes the home team wants you there more than not. So you might do 8 and the other guys 5 and 5 and 4. You get the experience and work them in little by little. At one time, I was by myself, and I had a backup who wanted to just do the 2 preseason games. But they're saying, well, that's not good because let's say week 15 you get sick, and he hasn't worked since preseason. So we're trying to work it so everybody gets a mixture in and does that. My one backup at the time, he called. It was funny and said, "I'm sorry." I said, "What are you sorry for?" He said, "Well, they're sending me to London." And I said, "What's wrong with that?" He said, "Well, I'm just a backup." I said, "That means I got the best backup in the country, so you go to London." so
London would be all right. Yeah.
Yeah. They have those games there. They're not having this year, obviously, but that's kind of interesting stuff. But it's a fun job. It's an interesting job. You meet a lot of people, but when the game starts, you better be ready.
Yeah, I don't think you've slowed down at all during retirement.
Well, you know what though? It's only 10 times. Hopefully, playoff you get 11 or 12. And now I traveled last year 3 games, but you know, it's a good job. It's a fun job. Hope we can keep it.
What's your favorite part about athletic training?
My favorite part, you know, is taking care of the athletes. And I go back to my parents' days. My mother was a very caring person, loving person. My dad was a work ethic, workaholic type person. And guess what? That's athletic training, right? That's athletic trainers. So taking care of an athlete and watching them get better from something and watching them progress and get back, he or she does a great job. You know, somebody flips you the football after a touchdown, says, "Thanks, Mr. Iz," you know, that's for you. And like, gosh, it makes you cry, right? That's important. Watch them progress. I always enjoy the part where there's an athlete you got to push back and there's the athletes you got to harness back, you know, the ones that want to play before they're ready and the ones that don't want to play even though they're ready. And that's the trick that we have to know. That's the mental part that people don't realize sometimes in athletic training, handling the coaches in that, you know. A good friend of mine at college, the first day at Downingtown, I walked in the gym and he's there. And I haven't seen him in like 13 years, right? He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I just took the job as athletic trainer." I said, "What are you doing?" "I just took the football coaching job."
You know.
And it was pretty neat. So, and he won a state championship. We went to 2 finals. But the interesting, he was a mental guy. He was a great psychologist, great motivator. Well, he'd walk in my room, sit at my desk, and say, "How you doing? How's John doing?" I said, "He's not playing, John, so don't try to convince me." "Okay." Yeah, okay. And he'd walk out, you know. But he, you know, we knew each other.
I know what you want. I know why you're in my office.
Yeah, right. I knew what he was coming in for. He didn't pretend like it was something else, but you know. So, but just athletic training is just a rewarding job. I mean, what we do for our kids and athletes, and see them years later, and hopefully their fingers aren't all mangled because we took care of it right. You know.
Yeah. And then working at the high school, I'm sure you saw a lot of families come through there in your tenure.
Oh my gosh, yes. I kid the one family. Soccer, we were pretty good teams there too. Our women's team won 4, men's team won 4 states, and they had a good thing where the coaches would let me speak to both parents groups during the camp preseason. So I got everything out of the way. I talked to all the teams, but I got to talk to the parents, like what to expect from me, what to expect from their kids, you know, nutrition, just a lot of things. And so you get close. Well, one year I said, "I'm not going to talk. I'm going to let Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so," because they've been here 16 times. They heard me talk because they had 4 kids, 4 years apart. So they were for 2 girls and 2 boys. So they knew the speech better than me. And so, but that's a fun thing because they know what to expect. Like when their child goes, you know, here's a difference of high school and college. You asked that earlier, and this is one of the funnier ones. You know, college, it's you and the kids on the football field, right? If it's football. First athlete got hurt on a football field at the high school. I ran out in the field and we're out, and the coach comes out, you know, and the referees are standing there, and all of a sudden I see this guy, and I said, "Who are you?" He said, "I'm his father." I said, "Get off my field," you know. So I had to do a talk to the football parent. You know, you don't come on my field, but you know. So I would tell him, "I'll call you over when things settle down, and we'll let Johnny or Janie, and I'll tell you what we need to do." That was a shock for me. What's a parent doing on the football field? But
yeah,
other than that,
I've had experiences like that. Those aren't fun. We need some privacy to do our job sometimes.
Right. That's where the tents came in now in college and the pros, I guess, too. Right. But it's I don't know how to describe. I tell the young kids when I talk to them, young students, that it's a rewarding job that you'll never forget. If you're doing your job right, they'll love you. And you know, and there's instances you might have problems, but all these years, not too many coaches I didn't get along with, and we had the respect for each other. John Chaney was probably the best person in the world to ever work for. He made me who I am as far as coach athletic trainer relationship. He never bothered you about things, and I mean, we could talk for hours, some funny stories with him with that, but he just knew when it was ready. And actually, my luck being a young punk then, we had one of our All-Americans, like the third game, fractured his, you know, wrist, and the coach, you know, here's our All-American, you know, sophomore, junior, and he said, "When's he going to be ready?" I said, looked at the schedule. I said, "I think when we go to Gannon University, January 6th, I think I can get him ready." And being young then, I would work with the athlete. I'd play one-on-one against them and shoot against them, you know. Later in life, you get the other athlete to do it with them, you know.
Exactly.
When it's ready, you know, like the goalie, you know, shooting in the goalie, I could do that. But when I got older, I had somebody else. But this athlete, I worked, and we go up to Gannon, and if you've ever been there, John Cheney says it's worse than going to Duke as far as the noise level in their old gym. And they love to hate us, especially him. And they had a 66-game home win streak. And this player made a 1-on-1 to win the game with 1 second left. So to John Cheney, I was a god.
That's what it's all about. That's awesome.
I mean, again, luck has a lot to do with it. If it didn't happen, I might not be here talking to you today. But so yeah, you just get.
So Joe, you obviously have a strong passion for athletic training. That's apparent. You've been doing it for a while, and you're obviously very good at it. You also were very involved in the PATS legislation and in some of the licensure laws and other areas regarding the government. Can you just talk about your role and what positions you were in during that time and how, what were some of the obstacles that were in the way of pushing our profession forward?
Yeah, well, you have like 20 presidents that could tell you about this. One of my students, preceptor person I had at Cheney through Westchester, Steve Nemes was on the board, I think, or on the committee. He's just retired, I believe, or from Muhlenberg University.
Muhlenberg, yeah. Yep.
And actually, he had my son as a preceptor from East Stroudsburg, so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
He talked me into running for the PATS Eastern rep position. I said, "What are you doing to me? I'm busy with the college." But actually, moving to the high school gave me more time to do that stuff. Mm-hmm. And they actually liked that. The board of directors and the principal, they said, "Yeah, do that." And they kind of liked that. So that gave me a little more time as a high school athletic trainer to do it. So I said, "Okay," I ran. And to this day, I still curse them out because like 20 years later, I'm still involved, right? But we kid about that because I've done the same thing to other people.
Once you get in, you're not getting out.
Yep. So I was 2 years as Eastern rep, and then the president-elect came up, and they twist your arm, and I ran. And so I was president-elect, and Bob Shank and Celios was the president before me. Bob Shank was past president. So we would go to some board of the PT board at the time. We were under the PT board, physical therapy board. So we go to their board meetings, and I sat there, and I'm like, wow. There's stuff that they can ask us, they won't ask us. But when there's something to talk about us, we have to leave the room because they go in executive session. I said, something's not right with this. We had 3 people in the advisory committee, but they did not have a vote. They were just advisors from our athletic training from PATS. And I said, it's like the plumbers governing the electricians, or the carpenters running the plumbers. I said, it's not right. So the first day I took over as president, we were at Hershey, I guess, for a conference. We kind of convinced the PT board to have their open meeting with us. We invited the big wigs to come, and we wined and dined them, and we said, but have your open meeting here. An open meeting, anybody can go. And we had then not as many as we have now, but we had 200 or 300 people show up, other trainers. And you get the open floor, you get to speak. So I opened up and gave a passionate speech about it. And I said, I think we should get our own law and our own board. And I said a little quote that if you're an athletic trainer, be proud of it. If you're a PT who became an athletic trainer, ask yourself why. If you're an athletic trainer who became a PT, don't forget your roots. And I never want to hear anybody say, I'm just an athletic trainer. Because that's what people used to say. Are you PT? No, I'm just an athletic trainer. No, you're not just an athletic. And then we pushed to get under the Medical Practice Act and the Osteopathic Practice Act. But you know how many years? It took 18 years to get that law through. But a bunch of us from our board and other people spoke, Paul Tarocci, Phil Donnelly, myself, in front of the Senate committees to get it passed. But it took years and years, with all the politics. But so at least now, and we actually had a member be in charge of that board. So that's kind of a real feather in the cap. One of our PATS members was a chair of the PT board. So, athletic training board, medical board. So, that's a good thing for our profession, but we still have a lot of work to go. It took us years. A few years later, we tried to change some wording in the law. Our definition of that, we only could take care of athletes back in those days. And it was a bad definition of athlete. So we got physically active put in, not what we really wanted, but better than what we had. So I think now they're looking at changing that too. And now the proclamation from the governor, I don't know if you saw that just came out.
Yeah, it's letting us be true physician extenders and work with the full population, which I think is awesome.
That is unbelievable. that right there, they should just make that permanent, not just because of COVID, because maybe something else will come up. If they don't make it permanent and we go to change the law, we have it. Hey, you let us do it before. Why can't we do it now?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
Exactly.
it would just allow us to work in a broader, a broader definition with more groups of people and be more employable and more worthwhile to some of the larger hospital systems. Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's really cool.
That is unbelievable that we got that. So that's exciting. So yeah, pretty much it's a long trail, but we did it, and many presidents took the path along the way to do it. Many board of directors. So it's not over.
To get some of the wording, the verbiage, and these practice acts in place, and I think it's really valuable to hear it from you guys that lived it. What were where we are where we are now, but where do we need to get to, Joe? And what do you think the biggest obstacles are now that's holding us back?
I think, we've gone giant steps, but we're still in I'd say we used to be in infancy, and then we became teenagers. Now we might be adolescents, but we're still growing a profession, and we got to get out there and who we are and what we do. That's still a big thing, And then when that personal training thing became a buzz, they got us mixed up with them. You can take a weekend course to do that, right? And so you train people? No, yes, we do prevention care, and rehabilitation. I try to throw that all in there. And we do the prevention, we do exercise programs for people to get them ready, but we're not personal trainers. And that used to be the difference, we're athletic trainers. So I think that respect, but the people now, like if you look, high schools, my high school, we got a second athletic trainer. Some high schools have 2 and 3. We're none. So we're getting there. But are we just water boys and girls, or are we professionals? And I think that's what we got to make sure we do. I worry a little bit, and I might get people mad at me, but the clinics in Pennsylvania coming in, taking over the high schools, that worries me. Not the athletic trainers, but how they're perceived. They're more of coverage than care. Like I said, the parents knew me. They'd call me from wherever. I thought I shut this darn thing. And anyway, it's a better rapport, and I worry that we lost that through the clinical. And then our students are leaving the new athletic trainers because they're not getting paid as well. When you're on a teacher's contract or administrative contract, you're making nice pay, and the pay's not always great, but you got a retirement, you got other things to go along with it. And for our profession, that would be a big plus. So I think who we are and what we do is important. We're not just there to cover practice and games. We're there when your son or daughter gets seriously hurt to save a life. And it takes that till then they knew who you are, but you don't want that to happen. But that's what happens sometimes, to get something important done. And I mean, when I was at Philadelphia Textile, the president came in. I had a terrible athletic trainer in there. They never had an athletic trainer. It was the side of a stage, But this important guy, he was trying to wine and dine for a job, had Achilles tendon rupture, and when they ran across the big street there by the college, he kind of re-injured it. He took me to see him, and I was there 3 or 4 months. He said, "What do you need?" And I told him. He said, "Come see me tomorrow." And he had a big benefactor, and guess what? I got a whole new facility. Again, had somebody to get hurt to do it, but so we got to know who we are and what we do. The young professionals, I think, are ready to do that. I just hope their work ethic's like it used to be, but sometimes I think they're smarter than us. They know life's balance better. A lot of us, our children were important, but it took me to change to the high school to get back with my kids when they're growing up, because I was missing them grow up when they were young. So my students through preceptors probably taught me more than I taught them. You learn from them. They got the knowledge. They got the know-how. They need the experience. You always need that. My quote to my students always were, if we have to find something, you and I will go to a book and look it up, but we can't look up experience. And to me, that was important. Like when we used to have to put, at one time, they used to have to put like 800 hours in. I don't know if you probably weren't around then. And then they cut it to 200 or something. Well, that's because maybe they thought people were abusing their students, but they really weren't. But then they weren't there as much. And guess what? I used to have an athletic trainer, a student. There were three young athletic trainers in Westchester. And one would have a soccer game with me one night. Well, the one said, "Can I come?" I said, "Sure." And then they thought I got in trouble because I made him put too many hours in. I said, "No, she wanted to come. I didn't tell her to work tonight, but she would have missed a dislocated shoulder that night." So the two of them got to see how to take care of that. To me, that's the most important thing in the world. You can't look that one up in a book, how to put it, dislocated shoulder back, right? So that's the kind of stuff sitting around. I said to Phil earlier, this reminds me in a modern way of what we used to do at conventions, sitting by the fireplace in the lobby of a hotel, telling stories and learning from each other this way. So this podcast to me is the modern version of that, and I think it's tremendous. Because students, if they sit and listen and learn, I still listen from my cohorts, my age, say something. I say, wow, you tried that? I didn't know it. Yeah, that's a good idea. My students, same thing. They said, Mr. Iezzi, why are we doing this? I said, because I've been doing it for 30 years. And they said, well, did you ever try this? And I said, no. And they do. I said, wow, that's a good idea. I've been wasting my time all these years doing that, So, you learn. If in our profession you think you know it all, you're done. You can learn every day. My dad used to tell me, if you don't learn something new every day, you wasted the day, and that's an important thing. So anytime you can learn from each other, young, older, and different, it's a way to learn. And our students are so knowledgeable. They know more than I'll ever know. But they got to be able to put it into practice. And then that's the important thing.
That's where that experience comes in. Right.
And it's hard to do. Like you said, at 22 years old, being a Cheney, I don't know if I'd want to go through that first 6 months again. On a Wednesday I got a job, and on Saturday we had a college football game. I was like, whoa. And I'm working for a coach who was a pro player. So, I thought a bad finger, I'd have to keep a guy out, and he thought a guy should play with a torn MCL, And so we went at it a few times, but guess what? When he left, he wanted me to go with him. So, we learned to work together, and I learned that he could not be as conservative, and he learned that, you got to watch what you do and not hurt somebody. So, that's stuff kids don't learn. I mean, I used to get calls from my old students that took jobs somewhere and say, oh my God, the male wrestling coach at such a school, been there 40 years, he's killing me. And it was a female, so he's really on her case, but she established herself, and, they respected her. It takes a while. So that our respect in our profession probably is the biggest word to answer your question from way back. So how do we do it, and what do we do? We get respect. We teach them who we are. You don't want to self-promote, but it doesn't hurt sometimes to let them know who we are. And that's where PATS and NATA and other organizations come in. The law, the wording was so bad of what an athlete was. It was the 4 criteria for an athlete back then was designated coach, designated practice. I can't remember. And then, and pre-participation physical. So designated schedule, designated practice, and a coach, right? Well, and designated practice. And what changed me to change the law too, that wording, I got that changed, is I was coaching my son's team at the time, 13-year-old team, and my shortstop and second baseman were both playing. One was playing for the junior high, and one wasn't, because his mother, he was mad at him for his grades. But they're playing summer ball. Well, if they ran into each other, which they did, and they both went down, legally I could look at the one. Legally, I couldn't look at the other because he didn't have a pre-participation physical because he didn't play at the school. The other one played at the junior high, and he could. I went, what's that? I thought, I'm sitting there looking at him going, I did, but I'm like, legally, we can't do that.
Right.
So I said, so we got pre-participation physical changed. Instead of that, the 4th criteria was, or seen by a licensed physician for an injury. Like 8 words or whatever, 7, 8 words. And then we got that put in. That took years, but it worked,
Right. Yeah.
So it takes a lot to change.
Yeah. So I'm hearing, be open-minded, earn your respect, and get some experience.
Right. Yeah. Yep. That's the main thing. Listen, look, listen, and learn, I guess it's something to be. Right?
There you go.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
All right. So the next 4 questions, this is our lightning round. They're quick questions, but they can sometimes get really deep and deep answers. So first one, what is your dream job?
I think I did it.
That's the greatest answer. We get that all the time. Well, it's either the role they're currently in, or the job that they had.
And that might be the only mistake our young professionals do. They have a dream job before they get a job. I guess I didn't have any idea what I really wanted to do. Nobody had thoughts of the pros back then. Mm-hmm. Now a lot of them, they want to be baseball or football and NBA. once I got that job, I thought I'd be at Cheney for 40 years, really, I loved it so much. But then I started thinking, I'm a baseball person. I love baseball. Shoot, that's 162 games. I used to be on the road like for 70, and it was a lot. You're 80 some games.
Yeah.
And in the pros back then, you had to watch the athletic trainer. If the coach got fired, they got fired. If they got hired, so if you go with somebody like Rick followed Andy Reid to Kansas City, that's a great thing.
Yep.
But some of them. So I was like, I don't want to be under control of somebody else's destiny. But when I worked with the Olympic teams, I started saying, this is tremendous. I had track team one year in Romania at the World University Games, but in the first Goodwill Games in Moscow, I had the women's U.S. volleyball team.
Okay.
Talk about a dream job. Not because they were the first woman to ever play beach volleyball, but no, the dream of that was you had 12 or 15 or 16 people. So you could make an individual program for each person.
Yeah.
Instead of the college,
Time
the
to
high
devote to
school.
everyone.
Yeah. Think of your college and high school. You got 300, 400 athletes a season.
Mm-hmm.
So that would probably be a dream job. And I actually got offered that job, but my kids didn't want to move to California, which I was a little upset about.
What?
Yeah, they were young. My daughter.
Who doesn't want to go to California?
When I showed her the pictures of all the men's volleyball, Olympic volleyball guys after, she said, "Oh, I guess I should have, huh?"
Oh,
That's a benefit.
Yeah. That's when Karsh Pillay and then played. I don't know if you remember those names, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. So that probably like a NBA team maybe, because they travel a lot too, but numbers are smaller, so you can really work hard with
more individualized.
Yeah. But other than that, I mean,
so
all the jobs I've done, I've loved. So. Yep.
So Joe, when you're not athletic training, what do you do for fun?
For years in the beginning, I played fast pitch softball, big time travel with that. I did that probably until 1999, but I was in a major car accident coming back from a PATS meeting. And so I stopped doing that. But for 43 years, I refereed high school and college basketball. And 45 years, I'm still doing baseball umpire. So some people kind of laughed. They said, that's your relaxation, getting yelled at. And you know what? It is, because when I'm on that court or on that field, I block everything that happened in my day or is going to happen tomorrow. And I'm just concentrating that game. So to me, that's like putting myself in a different world. And I'm just so that was, even though it's high pressure and crazy, but it's relaxation, And I enjoyed that. I mean, I got to do Kobe Bryant against Rip Hamilton down the Palestra, and stuff like that. So, but that's relaxation to me, even though the pressure's there. I'm not thinking athletic training. I'm not thinking home. I'm not, now I don't run as much. I got a new knee put in a few years ago, but I take nice long walks. I'm with my grandchildren and step-grandchildren and things like that, and family. So that's basically what I do to relax now.
That's not a bad way to relax.
Yeah.
So what inspires you? Where do you draw your inspiration from?
I guess what inspires me is to continue to make our profession the best that it can be. When I see something, I got to say something. So sometimes that's not always good, but if I'm sitting in one of our meetings, in our business meeting, I say, it doesn't sound right. We tried, it didn't work. Maybe we got to look at a different angle. So I still try to stay involved with that. Try to correct things, but inspiration is trying to be better every day at what you do, even if it's just relaxing. But
there you go.
My dream, what my dream was all the years I worked, was to be down the beach in September after Labor Day, because how many years you work football or all sports camp, and I never was a Labor Day with my family. My one cousin last year said, we always have that big Yeti dinner Labor Day down Sea Isle. And I said, well, where's your house? He goes, you've been here. I got pictures of your kids when they were little on the wall. I said, I could tell you I was never there because I never had a Labor Day off in 38, 40 some years. So that week after Labor Day, I go to the beach every year. And everybody used to ask me that first while, how's retiring? I said, I won't know till I'm not in camp. And I sent all my teacher friends a picture of me on the beach by myself. I was like, nobody there, and that inspires me. I like beaches. I go to Hawaii a lot, do stuff like that. So that's my relaxation now. But, yeah.
No, Joe, I feel you on that. Labor Day is usually like the first day of classes at Dickinson. So yeah,
Right.
it's like Labor Day. Like, no, I'm working on that day. It's just a normal day for us.
Your whole career.
Yeah. I completely get that. But anyway, we kind of asked you this question already, but what does being an athletic trainer mean to you?
It means giving my heart and soul to people that need help. And again, I use that definition: care, prevention, rehabilitation of athletic injuries or any injury. If you have a patient, now our scope is so great that we're in so many different areas of the profession, the Rockettes, NASCAR, so many. So it's not just, even though they're considered athletes, but they're patients, we can say, physically active in Pennsylvania, we say, but just taking care of them and seeing them getting better and working hard to do that just means so much to me. And I think that's what our profession is about, the heart and soul. If you lose that, then you got to watch. Everybody asks, when's it time to retire? One of my first students is retiring this year in Pennsylvania, 40 years of the job. And he used to ask me and other people. And I said, I found out, because I pretty much get intense at the games in college and high school, and even though I'm a referee, I try to be cool. But when I started knowing that in baseball, softball, basketball, that I didn't really care who won as long as it didn't go extra innings and overtime, I said, that's not a good sign. It's time to move on, right? Because I never wanted my teams to lose, but now I'm just saying, just don't go extra inning. I don't want to be here an hour longer. That's when you know, right?
Yeah, no, I completely agree, Joe. I completely agree. And I just want to say thank you. You've been an absolute legend on the show, and in athletic training, and we thank you for all your service and everything you've done for the profession. If any of the listeners have any questions or comments, is there any way that they can reach out to you?
Sure. You have my email, I think. Do you send it to them, or do I want to say it now?
Do you mind just sharing it with us?
Yes. My email is my last name, Iezzi, IEZZI, at Comcast.net. So
awesome.
Yeah, anytime. I look forward to talking to people all the time. We can do
Perfect.
it for hours. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Phil.
Absolutely. And thank you to the listeners. Let us know if you have any suggestions on topics or any other guests that you'd like to hear on the show. Until next time, I'm Adam Richmond.
And I'm Philip Hensler.
And this was the Pats Podcast.
Thank you.